Yeah, I think we don't really have to wait all the 5 minutes because most of the usual participants are present. Yeah. Okay, so let's start. Welcome everyone on today's Metal3 Community meeting. Today is the 17th of December 2025. My name is Adam Rosman and I will be your host today. I think we can skip the introductions. I don't see any new participants, and then we can continue. The reminders, please note that the meeting is recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. And then if you would like to have the project with contributions, then you can pick up issues, any issue, but issues specifically labeled with have wanted or good first issue are looking for contributors, and the good first issue ones are looking for folks who are new to the project and would like to start contributing. And if you are a experienced member of the project or user or contributor, then please create issues that can be fulfilled or completed or resolved by newcomers. And then if you think that your organization would be willing to publicly acknowledge the adoption of Metal3, then you can do that by you can do the disclosure by pushing the pull request into the root of the community repository and editing the adopters.md file, same way as the others have done, adding a new row of uh, row with a company name and organization name and adoption date and details. And that would help us gauge the level of the adoption. And then next one, if you are experiencing CI problems, there are always something going on with the CI. There are always improvements. There are always maintenance, restructuring all the time. Folks are working on it. So if you feel that you run into some problem with your pull request and you think that the problem is not specifically related to your changes, rather it comes from some misbehavior of the CI, then please create an issue, file an issue in the related repository, and link that issue to the Metal3 CI tracker project, or ping the maintainers on Slack. Okay, I think that's all for reminders. And if you're interested about any other documentation or artifacts or statistics, please check these links or the links on the main GitHub page, and then we will find what we are looking for. Let me check quickly the participants. Yeah, I know Leonard is busy with the CAPO, so probably we won't discuss the VBM CTL. I know Adil is also working on something else, so I might even remove these ones. Maybe just keep them around, these reminders about the two topics that we have not discussed on the MTM. Okay, let's continue. So community working group updates. I don't see any updates for the working group, and based on last week discussion, uh, other than the work with the iPixie, there is not much going on. So is there anyone who would like to share anything before I go to the next? Okay, if nothing, then let's go to the next topic. Next is the release team. I see two release team members present. So, is there any news related to the releases? I have seen work on the ISO, and I've seen some bumps the CapM3 side also.
Yeah, CapM3, IPAM, and BMO will be released hopefully like the 1.12.0 will be released tomorrow. Yeah. And also together with the other patch releases. So v1.10 and v1.11 patch releases will be done tomorrow. Some of them are already published, but yeah, we will announce tomorrow. So when everything is ready.
Thank you so much. I will just update this here. Okay. Anyone else? Comment, questions? Okay, if nothing, then we can continue. Next is the regular discussion topics, and first from me, proposal to cancel the next two meetings. One falls on the 24th, that's Christmas Eve, and the other is in Europe, and most of the maintenance contributors, as far as I know, at least the ones joining this meeting, are from Europe, so probably a lot of you will have public holidays. And then the 31st, that's New Year's, or the year's last day before New Year's Eve. So I guess none of them are good days to have community meeting, and I see a lot of plus ones. And is there maybe anyone who would be against it? Meaning that the next community meeting would be on the 7th of January. Okay, no one. Then what I will do is that I will push or send an email to the mailing list, and I will outline this proposal, and that on the community meeting we decided. But until the next community meeting, there is opportunity for someone to protest. But I think most of the people who join anyways are present today, so I don't think there will be any problem. Okay, I will just add it here that this was decided. Okay, and then let's go to the next discussion topic. This is from Sari, and this is related to, I already opened it somewhere, to this MAC address stuff.
Yeah, hi folks. I just wanted to understand if the change that was requested by Leonard, I think, is acceptable. I've reworked the PR, and if you're okay with going forward with that. Basically, separate name field, right? So if you don't put the name field, nothing will happen. If you put the name field, the underlying infrastructure of network cloud unit will just rename it, rename the interface. Basically, that's all.
Yeah, from my side, I simply just didn't have time to review this. I'm very busy, but I will try before next week. So by the end of this week, I will try to take a look. But I don't have any problems with it. I just didn't have time. I see that I was requested here by Leonard.
Great, and the second issue is kind of related to this because I want to do it, but I don't want to do it before merging name thing because it's real because it makes sense to have this also in bridge. So basically, I noticed that Carpentry doesn't have support of building bridges, but Cloud Init has, and I see a very huge use case of creating a bridge during the provisioning and not trying to be smart enough to do it manually after, because you might lose the network connection, right? But during the provisioning, it's safer. And I didn't do any PRs for that. I wanted to understand if that functionality is kind of interesting to Metal3 to have, and maybe we can base that off bond support, like separate field as bond with JSON, basically raw JSON for configuration, like similar solution, but something like that. I don't know. What do you think, folks?
Well, okay, Cloud Init supports it. That's okay, but does the Cloud Init OpenStack network data format support this? Like that specific format that we are using?
I think it does. I mean, I was looking at Cloud Init OpenStack PI basically for bridges.
Because if that format supports it, so it fits into the JSON structure, I believe it's JSON, then yeah, why not? But if we have to use some other formats,
No,
then
strictly OpenStack. I want to like have a functionality comparable to what Cloud Init has. I think the bridge thing is lacking from Metal3 and some advanced policy-based routing. I'm not sure how I want to go with policy-based routing because it's kind of complex, might be complex, but bridge is kind of essential, I guess, because like it's hard to recreate a bridge manually after provisioning if you're basically using this same interface for connectivity, right? You can break stuff and just doesn't look nice.
yeah. See, what the other thing I'm thinking is that would this be really useful in a sense? Would this be easier to maintain for you than writing a script into the like the user data into the post and pre-cube area?
I think it's easier because with if you're writing a custom script for that, you are basically saying that some parts of configuration are done manually, and at this point, why you would even want to use OpenStack, because you can do all the things manually. And the problem with that is it's kind of not very nice to use this with EPAM allocation. The whole idea is that what I want to have is kind of baseline support of configuration, nothing fancy, nothing advanced from OpenStack, so I could just use all the features that EPAM brings in for Metal3, right? Like all the stuff with annotations and all of that, it just works. If I want to have some magical things like advanced routing and all of that, I agree that it might not be very good to have this in this specific place, and I can probably do it in a script and as an addition, but the baseline of like network types, bridges, bonds, and all of that is assembled already. So it's kind of hacky, but not so kind of hacky. But if I need to support like assemble the bridge itself, I might just want to like, if in case of Ubuntu target OS, I might just do like plain net plan and just ignore the whole thing. This is what I basically do right now in some of the clusters. I put static IPs on annotations and use JSON for net plan templating. But I mean, it kind of works, but it doesn't look very pretty. I mean, I still not able to use all the features that EPAM brings in. I want to have like EPAM there, right? Because it exists.
Yep. I follow your logic. And I agree. I didn't know that bridge was also, or didn't remember that bridge was also supported in that format. We even have some options for bond that there is an issue that we should support it and it's still not supported. In our code, it's supported in the format itself. So I have nothing against like fully utilizing the existing pairing of the OpenStack Cloud Init network data format with the IPAM and these things. So we would be just opening up features that exist under the hood. So I have nothing against that. The only consideration is that how easy this will be to use with other configuration management tools. But to be honest, we officially don't have any other, and until we don't have any other, like we don't have like, the same level of support for NM State, the same level of support for other tools. Until then, I don't think we have to really think about that. So yeah, from my side, it's fine.
I think Ignition, I mean, we're probably mentioning Ignition, right?
Yeah,
I think Ignition also supports bridges. I mean, I'm not sure, but in case of imagine that, I don't know, maybe we should have like a type field in somewhere, like saying the underlying target would be Cloud Init or Ignition, and just like update. I mean, in general, not specifically to bridges, right? Would be probably more safer in this case. And I, as a consumer, declare that the target OS will use Ignition, and I expect Ignition kind of formatting to render, not to be guessed by Metal Cube. In that case, we can support some stuff in a different way when we render that, and not as a like some kind of level of abstraction right now, right? Because this structure is kind of abstract in a way in the network configuration.
I approve it, like accept it already. Like I see the point. I just hope that it won't be too hard to implement. Is there anyone who has any comments or detail, more in-depth questions or it's also fine to it's also fine to challenge. If I accept something after it's accepted, we can always, it's fluid. We can always change things. But yeah, go on. I think so. If you want to.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. I would like to see that, and I would like to use of that actually on my test environment. But yeah, I agree that should be very useful. And one more thing, I will also review your comment this week, the previous PR. So sorry for not reviewing it. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Bridges are indeed pretty foundational, and M-State support them, and I'm quite sure we rely on bridges in OpenShift. And in fact, M-State seems to support both Linux bridges and OVS bridges, which is far more than we could hope with OpenStack's network data implementation.
Good. Okay. Then I think we are on the same page, everyone.
Just to clarify, if we're talking about targeting this abstraction layer to OVS bridges, we might need to have the like the row JSON option on bridges like we have bonds right now, right? So if someone in the future implements support for OVS, we can just reuse the whole facility basically and setting basically the type, just extending the type target, because like target OVS instead of Linux bridges and same configuration.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we solve the OVS problem right now. I'm just pointing out that an M-State is actually further, is actually more advanced at what we are talking about. So it's totally fine if we support bridges. It's not going to hinder any progress with an M-State work.
Yep. Sounds good. Okay, so we agreed. Everyone agrees. I will just put it here. That's accepted. Okay. I think then we can continue. And Ricardo seems to have one.
Yeah, it's a last minute change there. I just added it because I remembered that I wanted to discuss this. It's much more simpler than what's what discussed before. So I actually started working a lot with HereDoc syntax for containers, and there are a lot of improvements there. And the problem is that when we build build images in Ubuntu, the version of Podman there is not recent enough to support the HereDoc syntax, unfortunately. So I propose to use a static compiled version, so it's a binary, and just use that one. So we are able, for example, to use Podman 5.x that has full support for HereDoc syntax, and yeah, that's it. I mean, using old version of Podman has all sort of issues and worse performance as well, but well, I'm talking specifically for the HereDoc syntax. So yeah, just let me know what you think. And thanks, Dimitri, for the comment there.
Yeah, to recap what I put in the document, no objections to doing whatever we need to make the SOCI work correctly. We do probably, based on that, need to mark this change as breaking with a warning sign for release notes, because people who currently build images may not be able to do it right away without upgrading their Podman or switching to Docker. So just in case.
Okay. I'm not really familiar with the HereDoc syntax, to be honest. So I can't really say either way. But would this present any limitation on I guess after this is so this only matters when we are building, right? So when we are building the container itself.
Yes, exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, I need to double check, but Docker should not have that limitation. It's strictly related to Podman. But I mean, if we want to keep testing Podman, I guess we should probably use a more recent version. And the alternative would also, for example, be installing a Podman package from a more recent version of Ubuntu, but that will imply also updating other packages, and it's not something that I would recommend. I've done that a couple of times in Ironic Upstream, but it's definitely not a good way to treat this type of problems. While the static compiled one, it's just a single binary with everything, and it doesn't interfere with anything else in the system. It will just work. And of course, I agree with Dimitri in highlighting the potential problem, like breaking the local builds. So release note definitely is needed there. There are some advantages of using the HereDoc syntax. It's just a way to have a more clear code in the Docker file, for example, and also saving some steps, meaning reducing the number of layers. So, like smaller images, and it's, yeah.
Okay. I usually build with just Docker, really using, not even using the reportman to build when I'm locally building these. So
I mean, this works very well with Podman 5. I use this, like I use HereDoc syntax in my own containers. I'm on Fedora and it works perfectly. The only problem here is that Ubuntu has an old version. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Don't really see much problem with it, but I'm also not someone whose daily work is affected by it or production is affected by it or anything. So I don't know. Okay? I'm not even a reviewer for this. Yeah. So anyone who has maybe a counterpoint to this or any problem with this one?
Just the quick comments. I think that the release notes should also specify what is the minimal versions needed for Podman that has this support if we want to have this, because this will allow anyone looking at this to know if they are impacted or not.
Yeah, of course. And if I'm not mistaken, the version that is installed by default in Ubuntu Noble, which is the version that we're using now to test, is actually EOL. So the minimum version in this case would be Podman 5 dot something, probably 5.5 or 6. I don't remember which is the latest one. But yeah.
Okay. Just one clarification. You mentioned that it reduces the number of the layers. How come? Do the end signs or the line breaks out plus layers, or how should I interpret that?
No, so this is actually a first change that just improves the readability of the Docker file. But there will be more. I can add to that if you want. It's just I didn't want to, pile up a lot of things in just one PR, because this is just an improvement on the current like structure of the Docker file in terms of readability, but nothing else.
Okay. Yeah, then now it makes sense. Now I understand what you're saying.
I think that there was an exchange with Tuomo in the comments. There are some things that probably I mentioned there, but otherwise, again, I can provide more examples.
Yep, from my side, I'm fine by it. It's really just that, like you, it will be more readable, and then it will help you improve the structure further. I'm fine with it. I don't really think it's a blocking issue, but yeah, we need like the notification that it's a breaking thing.
Right, sure.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anything related? Okay, if not, then this was the last regular agenda point. I think we can quickly run through the.
Just a quick thing I just noticed in one of my PR. We have the IRMC configuration stanza for, and when looking for something about it in the upstream ironic, it looks like it's deprecated and to be removed. Did we decide what we are going to do with it?
I think Dimitri put a deprecation notice somewhere in BMO also.
Also to the mailing list, I actually planned to remove everything in the upcoming releases. So after BMO 012 or whatever, so BMO 013 and Ironic Image, whatever the next is. Because yeah, Fujitsu basically stopped supporting their driver and it has some significant problems. Because of this, we cannot just move on and provide best effort support. It's essentially holding back updating SNMP library, which has known vulnerabilities among other things.
Okay, then since my change is not to be merged, is likely not to be merged before that, then I'll not try to fix the RMC possible issue.
So are you relying on RMC?
No, it's just that the pull request I have make a change to the for the kernel line arguments, and it may cause an issue with IRMC. I'm not sure. It may. For the certificate injection into the APA, and so since I don't know if it does use the correct function in Ironic to inject them automatically or not, then there was all this, and this is the only one where I wasn't sure of whether or not it does it correctly. So when I saw it was deprecated, I was like, oh, maybe I just shouldn't care.
Right, we are past Ironic Image release. We can just rip out the whole thing at any point. If you want to do it yourself, feel free to. If you want to, do some best effort, not break RMC as far as you imagine, just do that. Nobody cares at this point.
Okay.
Yep, sounds good. One question. I started to wonder about this, Dimitri. Is it concerning, or how should this fact of bunch of vendors just stop supporting Ironic drivers? How should we like take that, or do you have any sort of like interpretation yourself that would this be a problem going forward, or what people who use those servers use? It's kind of weird for me because if it's taken out from Ironic, as I understand, then it's not in OpenStack either anywhere. So what do people even use?
So there's like a positive and negative side. The positive side is that both vendors and consumers are massively moving towards Redfish. And Fujitsu itself is also moving towards Redfish. It's not quite ready, but they also, or just like Dell and HP and Supermicro and Lenovo and many others before they decided they go Redfish. That is a positive side. So we kind of have less code while supporting more hardware, which is awesome compared to the times where Ironic only had IPMI as a generic thing, and then you could list like 4 or 5 vendors who actually support. The negative side is, and I'll be a bit vague here for recording, there's a good share of competition from vendors on the software side. So there are vendor-specific services that compete with Ironic or compete with MetalCube. And that doesn't apply to Fujitsu as far as I know, but it does apply to some of other vendors we work with that we kind of frenemies at this point because they also want a piece of cake on the software side of bare metal provisioning. And that makes them less interested in actively working with Ironic or any vendor neutral solution for what it's worth.
Okay, I see. Thanks for
Adam,
thanks
can I
for the
ask, please, so we record that point of Dimitri just shared in the docs? Because it's kind of a problem in general. I mean, IPMI kind of ePXE boot kind of works fine across the fleet of different vendors. But in my experience, Redfish works only with big enterprise vendors, right? And something a bit lesser than maybe HP or Dell has a lot of problems with very strange solutions in case of Redfish. I'm not talking about specifically Ironic, but of firmware itself, right? And if you try to use that, it's unusable. You need some crazy hacks to have basically working around. It can just be stuck at reboot and cycle or HTTP port that Redfish expects. It only expects HTTP 80 port, nothing custom, and all of that is making life a bit miserable in case of Redfish.
Oh yeah, I've seen these ones with our customers. Not supporting TLS, supporting only TLS, not supporting custom ports, not supporting paths, not supporting sort of symbols and paths. Virtual media specifically is you're right, is a pretty big disaster. On the other hand, we did not have virtual media in a vendor neutral way with IPMI at all, so that's still a progress. So yeah, you are making a valid point. Redfish is creatively interpreted by vendors more often than not. And while big vendors usually have big customers telling them to stop doing that, small vendors, especially low-cost vendors, but also pretty big, a few big shops are doing also very creative things. Let's go it this way. That's just life. I don't have any word of I don't know, wisdom here, except that there's just a landscape we operate in.
There may be still one kind of glimpse of hope in all that. That is, the OpenBMC stuff is getting some traction with some vendors, and it's a stable base for most of them, and it guarantees at least a big part of Redfish to be functional.
That's also true. I believe you can get an ILO 6 machine with OpenBMC instead of the default stuff, among other things.
One thing that I was thinking, and this is kind of should be solved from Ironic side, I guess, how to handle this very strange Redfish implementations. OpenStack people might want to think about getting that Redfish implementation a bit more flexible when handling some kind of edge cases for hardware. Like allowing to customize the flow for specific vendor in case of a trouble, because the whole reason somebody wants to have Redfish is to avoid using network boot with ePXE, right? And you hit some strange problems with vendors, and you can't fix that from vendor side. And to fix that from Ironic side, it's kind of messy because you don't have the tools basically to customize the flow. I'm talking about the flow when you talk with the specific implementation from Redfish. One use case, it's kind of strange, but I think Dmitry also was highlighting that on one of the change issues in OpenStack, old version of Supermicros that have that kind of different endpoint for virtual media, right? And Ironic doesn't support that, and newer versions work fine, but the problem is similar, right? If I have those servers and I don't have any opportunity to do anything about it, and I'm need to use them, right? And the only way I can use without changing Ironic is basically Pixie. But I really want to use them with virtual media, for example, to avoid networking problems, and that is like a huge problem because I need to extend Ironic in some kind of way, and I don't have easy way to do it, not from the Ironic side and not from basically Metal3 because Ironic doesn't offer that also.
From what I've seen, most of the virtual media issues are related to the way you expose the ironic, the ISO basically that is fetched by the BMC. Like I've seen BMCs refusing to do HTTPS. I've seen BMC refusing to do HTTP, and it's get pretty crazy when you have both. And I've seen BMCs doing bad TLS negotiations. So you always have this kind of quirks because of hardware vendors. But yeah, this is not something that Ironic has a grasp on because it basically is outside of its control. It cannot do anything to configure or act differently for that specific BMC when it's the BMC that contacts the server.
And yeah, this is what I was mentioning. You kind of can fix that for your specific issue if you really want to do it, but the toolings are lacking, right? You can hack up some kind of change for like checking out vendor and doing some extra magic. For example, I know for a fact that some of the series that I use, if you like do free REST queries instead of one, like dual retry, sleep retry, it works. It's kind of quick over hardware, right? But for that fix to actually use, I need a lot of moving around with Veronic, and I don't want to do that. But if I have this kind of escape hatch, I can do specific configurations of Redfish just to make it work. It would be nicer, and also that would allow I guess consumers of Metal3 to share their experience of vendors and basically say, this is how I fixed the thing for this specific vendor. This is how somebody else was fixing for this specific thing. And that might actually help in general to have more like flexible support in Ironic itself in future. Because like you just can't collect all the use cases of freaky hardware. You don't have the opportunity, but if you allow this like for community to participate in easier way, you can actually collect these use cases from community and improve Ironic itself.
I think collecting use cases is a very valid point, and it never hurts to file a bug to Ironic's Launchpad about, okay, I have this model, it does this, Ironic does that, so these things don't work together. Even if you cannot fix it right away or at all, having this sort of like using Launchpad as a bit of a knowledge base is definitely welcome. Then on the topic of workarounds itself, you won't believe how many of them we already have in Ironic actually. Like we have 3 ways to insert virtual media already, all with their own quirks. And they're like branching into dozens of actual potential requests we can do. There are also like 3 tag handlings. We are doing a lot of that. We are happy to do more of that. I mean, we're not happy at all about it, but we can do that and we will do that if we get information, especially if we get somebody who can file the bug and also can test our workaround later on. Like we get a patch and like, hey, can you see if it actually fixes the problem? Because our big issue often that we ourselves have access to like all these usual suspects like HP and Dell, and not many of them, honestly. And we cannot test things, and when people come with, I don't know, NVIDIA hardware, like, oh my God, you need to test that for us. Then, yes, Nicholas is making also a good point that there is a part of the interaction which is completely outside of Ironic. And I'm not saying we cannot improve that, but our ability to improve that is significantly more difficult than just a different Python code. like supporting both TLS and non-TLS options in the same cluster is doable. It's just work that needs to be done. Supporting different ports. I mean, we could do all of this. You could just accept a URL from BMO side, but then BMO needs somehow to know this. And there's quite a whole bunch of design work to solve this. But none of this is lack of design on our side. So we always welcome reports and we also welcome contributions as well. Yeah.
When it comes to custom problems or like model specific problems or stuff like that, the easiest thing I have found was writing a driver. As Sari mentioned, extending the ironic. I don't know how this could be done so that it wouldn't be like the ironic folks always fixing and integrating these random workarounds. Instead, we would have some sort of customizable mapping or process definition for handling the redfish. But it just seems so complicated and
Yeah,
yeah.
there is a guy in the ironic community that is driving exactly what you're talking about. Basically, some mechanism of quirks, pronouncing this horribly, for redfish specifically, which is kind of a small Python plugin that describes, okay, this hardware cannot do that and can do this. I'm not sure how much it solves all the problems, but yeah, we are basically don't have, as always, people to work on this, but there's interest and there's a person who is happy to drive this work. If you're curious or anyone is curious, I can link you to the guy and we'll see what can be done.
Please do share in the chat, maybe in the Slack. I think everyone will find that interesting because it seems like everyone has this problem in some kind of way with some servers, and that needs to be in general somehow solvable, at least from a customization part. I don't expect that every change in like quick is going to land in Ironic itself, but I would like to have at least a database of solutions that people made. I don't know if that makes sense, because like doesn't make sense to solve the same problem if somebody already solved it.
Yeah, I agree. I also think, because I'm working with that part of BMO, that we could make the BMO's ability to the BMO's ability to define what driver and what interfaces are used. I mean, in sense of ironic node, we could make it a bit more configurable, a bit more flexible than what we have right now. That is like a hard coded like prefix that you have to put in the address, and then that defines everything. Because ironic itself is much more flexible. And maybe if we make BMO a bit more flexible, maybe a separate CR or something like some BMC configuration CR, then we could help people also to inject their own plugins when quirks are not enough for you, and you really need a new plugin of Ironic, and you can handle it, but you don't want to patch BMO code, then that could come handy. For example, that's what I can also mention what I learned recently.
I fully agree. I don't really want to change BMO code. I'm fine kind of changing Ironic. If it needs to be done, I would be very fan of even having some kind of plugin system for Ironic itself, not to like rebuild the image or rebuild it in an easier way. And that would be awesome, but I would like to avoid changing code as much as possible. I mean, I can, but I don't want to have a fork lying around. I want to have vanilla that everybody uses, and like the same problem with the forks, right? If you fork, you lose the community testing, right? I want to use the same thing that other people use, because that way I understand that some of the problems are already solved. Like somebody is helping me in an indirect way to solve my problem. With folks, I can't have that.
I can put myself here. I can drive this because I'm working on this area more and more.
Yeah, please sync with Cardua. I just pinged him on IRC. He also wants to get back to this topic finally. So it seems like we have a few people who may be interested in the same thing, and that may lead somewhere.
Yep, sounds good. It was a good discussion. We have 6 more minutes. If there are no more questions, I wouldn't really go through the milestone, because what is actually, I checked it. We have to add the new milestones for the after the new releases go out, and then there is no point checking this now, because we are just the day before the release. So I can check this at the end of the week after the releases went out. Is there any other comment, question, or problem, or anything that we should discuss? If not, then thank you for joining today. We had very good discussions, I believe. And then the next 2 community meetings will be cancelled, most likely, and I will send the email about that. And yeah, thanks for joining, and happy holidays, and let's meet in the new year. I hope we will have similarly large group of participants as we had this year. And until then, have a great rest of the week and weeks until the next meeting. Bye bye.
Thank you, folks.
Thank
Happy
you, everyone.
holidays.
See you.
Bye, everyone.
See you. Bye.